We start by using somebody else's money to buy the property. We take the property from being ugly to making it pretty and immediately force appreciation. We get traditional appreciation over time just because real estate is an asset that goes up in value based on historical data. Tenants are going to pay off our debt or our leverage for us. Plus, all the extra money they are going to pay is going to go in our pocket in the form of cash flow. And then we slap the cherry on top by paying less to Uncle Sam. Welcome to the Rich Dad Real Estate Show, where we talk about the good news and bad news of real estate, hosted by yours truly, Jaren Sustar. So chances are you have been wanting to buy real estate, but you just don't have a ton of extra cash laying around. Or maybe you have more than you give yourself credit for, but you're scared to part ways with it all. Look, I know how it feels because I was stuck in that position back when I started just a few years ago. But spoiler alert, I was able to overcome that roadblock, build a large portfolio of properties worth millions of dollars, and it's completely changed my family's life. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how I did it and how you can do it too without having to use a lot of your own capital. When I started buying rental properties in 2018, the reason was because I wanted financial freedom. Everybody I've ever talked to has the same desire: freedom. However they want to word it, that's what it always boils down to. So I personally wanted time freedom, meaning I could choose what each of my days looked like. And second, I wanted financial freedom, which just meant that money wasn't going to be a stressor for my family and I any longer. And I knew, based on history and based on data, that people who have bought real estate and held on to it for a long time had no other option than to become wealthy. I want you guys to check out this graph. Now, if you're listening on a podcast platform, number one, go subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can see cool stuff like what I'm about to show on the screen now. But the graph I am showing represents real estate values over time. It starts by showing home values in the 1960s up until today. And what do you think happened to the prices of homes over the span of the last 60 plus years? They've gone up in value. Why? Because that's what real estate does. And quick side note, if we look closely at the graph, we see that real estate prices start increasing pretty drastically in the 1970s. Do you know what else also increased drastically in the US in the 1970s? Inflation. And it's obviously still a problem today, not only in the US, but across the entire globe. And so while the dollar continues to go down in value, and while you're losing your purchasing power by saving, and you know saving doesn't make you wealthy, Rich Dad taught you that, if you would just take your capital and store it in assets like real property, you can continue to gain value consistently while hedging against inflation all at the same time. It's what the wealthy do, and I want you to be wealthy. Okay. Rant over. So being the simple guy that I am, I said, well, let me try this asset that's made all these other people wealthy since the beginning of time, because if it's working for them, it ought to work for me too. And sure enough, here we are all these years later after buying my first flip in 2015 and first rental in 2018. And what do you know? I get to choose what my days look like. And money isn't a stressor for my family because we're financially free. All because we bought real estate. And the majority of it, we bought without using our own money, which I'm going to tell you about here in a second. I got to say though, when people talk about financial freedom, they often like to post the exotic cars, the vacations, the watches. You guys know what I'm talking about, especially if you spend any time at all on social media. And while that may be cool for a period of time, the true joys of freedom that I have experienced come in the simple things, like being able to be present with my kids every day, not missing the big family and life events, getting to go to the gym once, sometimes twice a day, going out to eat whenever we'd like without having to worry about how much the meal is going to cost us. Is it fun to take my family on nice vacations and travel and all those expensive things? Yes, no doubt. But it's the simple things in life that add up that make it more enjoyable when you have wealth. And I want all of you to experience it. So, outside of only financial freedom, why did I want to buy real estate? Why do pretty much all wealthy people own real estate? What are the actual nuts and bolts financially of owning real assets? Well, there are 6 main pillars of real estate, and you guys are going to hear me talk about these a lot. And when we combine these 6 pillars, I coin it as the greatest financial concoction known to man because it ultimately leads us to the desired outcome of financial freedom. So pillar number 1 is leverage, which we're going to talk a lot about in this video. And FYI, we did a deep dive on how to build wealth in real estate using on debt in last week's episode. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to it, go check it out. But leverage simply means that we can buy this very expensive asset, real estate, with little to none of our own money. It's that simple. And what's crazy is it's almost impossible to do that in every other asset class, but within real estate, we're able to leverage debt to buy property regularly, which is only going to allow us to buy more, all while increasing our returns. The second pillar is what we call forced appreciation, which is just a fancy way of saying that we can buy an ugly house, rehab it, make it look pretty, and it's instantly going to be worth more. Third, we're going to accumulate traditional appreciation. This just means that over time, based on historical data, property values are going to go up. We get to benefit in the increase in value by increasing our net worth and our equity stakes in our portfolios. Next, we have what everybody likes to talk about. Cash flow, baby. Cash flow is simply all the income you have minus all the expenses. And then whatever is left over after everything is paid is cash flow. Next, we have what's known as debt paydown. So when you buy rental properties, you're going to have tenants paying your rent. Part of that rent is going to go towards your mortgage, which means the tenants are going to be paying down the debt on your loan for you. And then finally, number 6 is tax benefits, depreciation, write-offs, 1031 exchanges, refinances, so many ways to reduce taxes when owning assets like real estate. So let's do a quick recap. We start by using somebody else's money to buy the property. We take the property from being ugly to making it pretty and immediately force appreciation. We get traditional appreciation over time just because real estate is an asset that goes up in value based on historical data. Tenants are going to pay off our debt or our leverage for us. Plus, all the extra money they are going to pay is going to go in our pocket in the form of cash flow. And then we slap the cherry on top by paying less to Uncle Sam. And I don't know about you guys, but I hate giving my money to Uncle Sam. You ever see how those folks in DC waste the dollars that we hand over? Anyways, we're going to stay away from that topic today. So these 6 pillars, like I mentioned, are what I call the greatest financial concoction known to man. And when you look at everything that real estate has to offer and you start applying it to your own life, you really have no other choice but then to become wealthy. Listen, I know it may not be as tangible for you right now if you haven't gotten started in real estate, or maybe you recently started building your portfolio and you just haven't really started realizing the full power of owning property. Listen, the beautiful thing is, listen to me guys, as you own these properties over time and they work for you for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, those returns start to compound. Next thing you know, you look back and you say, wow, I just started this journey a few years ago and I'm a multimillionaire and financially free. How in the world did that happen? Well, it happened because you said yes. It happened because you took the necessary steps. You went and purchased the property and you let time and the 6 pillars do their thing. But a lot of people struggle and run into the roadblock of, I don't have enough money to put a down payment of 20% on a real estate deal. And I think that's a very valid concern from folks who want to get into real estate, but they haven't done so yet. Or maybe for folks who they're in real estate, they're wanting to scale, but they're just not sure how to scale. I know that was an issue for me. When I started buying in 2018, I bought my first 2 properties, putting 20% down on each, and then I rehabbed both of them using my own money as well. By the time I got done with both of those properties, every dime that I had saved up, which was around $50,000 at the time, was gone. So now I had 2 rental properties, which I was ecstatic about. But I wanted to scale because I knew the more properties that I could add to my portfolio and own over time, while compound interest did its thing, was only going to expedite my journey to financial freedom. And so this is where I hit a crossroads and said, I have to find a way to buy properties without using my own funds. Because if I keep waiting to use my own funds, I'm only going to be able to buy maybe 1 or 2 properties a year at best, and that's just not going to cut it. And so this is where I learned the power of using what we call other people's money, or you may hear it mentioned as OPM. So the way that we're going to use other people's money is broken down really into 3 different buckets, okay? You're either going to do it through number 1, what we call private partners or private lenders. Number 2, using what we call hard money lenders. Or 3, you will use institutional lenders, also known as banks. Or you may use a combo of any and all of these. So stay with me. Let's go through it. So let's start with private lenders. When you think of private lenders, I want you to think of somebody in your network that is wealthy. has a high income, is well off, or comes from a wealthy family. They don't have to be super rich, but they've done a good job financially. They've stayed out of bad debt. They've got a good savings in place. They've got money in the stock market. Maybe they have money sitting in a 401k. It's somebody that you know, or maybe you don't know yet, but you will, who has their finances buttoned up and they like to make money in smart, conservative ways. This may be one of your friends, your family members, a coworker, or it may be in the network of one of your friends, family, or coworkers. It may be other investors that you meet networking or someone you come across online. It doesn't matter. Just know when we say other people's money or OPM, it just means people that you meet in your network who are willing to lend or partner with you on real estate deals. Now, I know it may seem foreign or impossible to you right now, and you're probably thinking, I don't have anybody off the top of mind in my network who would do that for me. Guess what? That's okay. You don't have to know them today. You're here to learn right now. But everybody listening to this has somebody in their network tree, whether immediate or whether you have to chase them down through other people's networks, who would lend you money or partner with you to do real estate deals. So I actually put a guide together. It's completely free, called my private lender guide. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes, along with a link to my private lender presentation, which is just a PowerPoint template you can use to pitch private investors. I believe both of these will be very helpful for you guys moving forward. And so we're going to hook you up with them. Okay. Second, we can use what's called hard money lending or hard money lenders. So private partners are going to be those people who are in your network, normal folks who don't necessarily lend for a living. Whereas hard money lenders, on the other hand, are companies that do lend for a living, with their specialty being what we call bridge loans. So bridge loans are just short-term loans, usually 365 days in length. Oftentimes, these lenders will loan anywhere from 80 to 100% of the purchase of a property, and then 100% of the rehab. So this means we only have to come up with somewhere between $0 and 20% as a down payment to get to the closing table. Now, let me shed some light here so that you guys understand what lending is like in the investment world versus buying your personal home. Okay. When you utilize a conventional loan in your personal name to buy your own home, the bank makes you do what is called a seasoning period on your down payment funds. How many of you have gone to get a home loan and the bank is telling you not to deposit or withdraw any large amounts in and out of your bank account leading up to the deal being finalized because it may delay closing? Look, it's required by banks to follow that seasoning period for conventional loans that are backed by the government, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, according to, I believe, what is the Patriot Act. In the real estate investing world, though, they don't have to follow the guidelines because most investment loans aren't backed by the government. It doesn't matter where our down payment comes from, how long we've had the down payment, and who gave it to us. All that matters is that we have a down payment. So if we need a down payment to get a deal done, we can use a private lender. We can use our HELOC. We can use our own cash. It does not matter. So then our hard money lenders who lend based on how the property is going to perform will then lend us not only the remaining amount of the purchase price after the down payment, but also 100% of the rehab. Now, I mentioned earlier the word bridge loan. When you work with a private or hard money lender, most of the loans are over the course of 365 days, as I mentioned, although that's negotiable, especially in the private lender space. During the life of the loan, you're going to pay interest-only payments every month to the lender. Now, it's important to understand that you do not have to keep the loan out for an entire year. If you get done with your project in 4 to 6 months, which hopefully you do, you should be able to pay the lender back without incurring a penalty. But every month that you are using their money, they're going to charge you interest. So what do those rates look like? Well, they vary. But traditionally, when we look at private and hard money lending, you're most likely going to pay somewhere between 8% to 15% in interest. Although private lending rates are more negotiable because they're not as structured, for lack of a better term, as a hard money loan may be. But paying higher interest for bridge loans is just part of the game. You have to pay to play. They're giving us their money to fund our deals. We're paying them in return. We'll be right back.
Are you worried about your financial security in these unprecedented times? If you are, the next minute could profoundly impact your financial security. Imagine waking up to find the economy has plunged and your portfolio has plummeted 30 to 45%, while banks are in turmoil, holding your money hostage while waiting for FDIC intervention. Where would you turn? For many, this may sound like fiction, but it's a stark reality. For those that have money on the line, recently America's awoke to both the NASDAQ and the Dow, plummeting over 1,100 points each and triggering a frenzy of sell offs. History shows us how a single event can crash the market, like the dot-com bubble of 1999, the subprime mortgage crisis of 2008, and the pandemic of 2020. But today, we're facing multiple bubbles: commercial real estate, stock, bonds, and banks. Combined with the relentless inflation, the threat of global recession, the specters of war, and you have the perfect storm. The consequences could be catastrophic, plunging us into unprecedented crisis. America is sliding in the age of discord, with trust in institutions collapsing and the democratic norms unraveling. The quality of life for Americans has declined. Wealth is concentrated among the rich, while the median American family income stagnates, creating a dangerously top-heavy social pyramid. Moreover, hostile countries like Russia, China, and Iran are working to destroy the U.S. dollar. Gold is a no-matter-what store of wealth that you need. That's why Robert has been such an advocate of gold, and he trusts Allegiance Gold. Allegiance Gold is ready to help you incorporate physical gold as part of your portfolio and protect it against economic uncertainty. Visit protectwithrobert.com today to learn how you can qualify for up to $5,000 in free silver with a qualifying investment. Or give them a call at 844-3-ROBERT. Remember to mention Robert and Kim sent you when you contact Allegiance Gold. Secure your IRA or 401k today with Allegiance Gold. Visit protectwithrobert.com or call 844-3-ROBERT.
Welcome back to the Rich Dad Real Estate Show, where we talk about the good news and bad news of real estate. I'm your host, Jaren Sustar. And before the break, we were talking about the 6 pillars of real estate, how they help us reach financial freedom, and the different ways that we can use other people's money to buy real estate. Now we're going to dive all into how we can structure actually paying interest to those lenders, at least on the private lender front. Because when we look at hard money lenders, you're traditionally going to pay interest monthly, although some companies have products that allow you to accrue interest over the life of the loan. But oftentimes with a private lender, I will structure the deal to where I accrue the interest and pay them all the interest back at the end of the project when I have either sold the property or refinanced the property. This lowers my monthly holding costs. Now, I want to stop and acknowledge that some of you might be thinking, why would somebody ever lend to me? Like, nobody's going to do that. Or maybe you're thinking, why wouldn't they just go do the real estate deals themselves instead of lending money to me? Look, I feel you. I understand your concerns. I understand your frustrations. I was where you were not long ago, wondering all those same things. But guess what? Today, I have people lined up to lend to me because of the reputation I've built over time. And I want you to understand that the same thing can happen for you. But when I first started, I had to chase people down, just like you're going to have to do if you're going to go on this journey and be successful. It's not easy. If it were, everyone would be doing it. It's in fact hard, to be completely honest, but it's totally worth it. Because when it comes to partnering with private lenders, it's all a mindset shift. Many of you right now cringe at the thought of asking someone to partner with you on a real estate deal. You know why? It's because you're looking at it through the wrong lens. You are viewing yourself almost as like a beggar bothering someone for money, when in reality, you are a real estate investor, a business person, inviting someone to partner with you and make great returns off of your sweat equity. So guess what? It's their privilege to lock arms with you. And so once you change that mindset, you can start going to work confidently. Then you start bringing in deals where you're able to show a potential investor that you're buying it for X and needs X amount of rehab. And once the property's done, it's going to be worth X amount with an estimated profit of 40K or whatever the amount may be. And so you go to a potential lender and you say, hey, do you know anyone who would be interested in partnering me on this particular deal? I expect the project to last 6 months or less, but I'm looking for a 365-day loan as a buffer. We're willing to pay 12% interest. Now, what I just did is a strategic, non-aggressive way of asking that particular person if they want to lend by asking them if they know somebody who would want to lend. Then the next step is someone agrees to partner with you and they get to reap the rewards. And you want to guess what happens next after they complete that first deal with you and make 12% on their money in 4 to 6 months just from wiring you some capital? They start calling you asking, hey man, how can I lend you again? When do you have your next deal? Because they just made a lot of money. And all the while, it was backed by the very strong asset of real estate. And to the point of why wouldn't they just go do real estate deals themselves if they have all the money? Well, some of them do. Tons of investors are also private money lenders, but others may have no interest in learning the ins and outs of running a real estate business and would rather you handle that while they get paid to just put the money into your account. All right. So we've covered private partners and hard money lenders. Third are institutional lenders. I want you guys to think banks, particularly small local banks or what we call debt service coverage ratio lenders, DSCR lenders. So banks traditionally want a down payment of somewhere between 5 and 20% and will loan you somewhere between a 15 and 30-year term. They also tend to offer cash out refinancing options, which we will talk about here shortly. All right, guys, so real quick, take a deep breath and hang with me because we're about to put all of this together. And ultimately, I'm going to teach you the strategies to use when leveraging other people's money to buy real estate. I just had to lay the foundation for us to build upon. So there are two things that you can do after you acquire a property. First, you can fix it up and sell it. Second, you can keep it in your portfolio as a rental. Now, fix and flips, which was option one, are pretty self-explanatory. You buy the property, you fix it up, you sell it, and you pay back the lenders once the property's sold. So today, I don't want to spend as much time on that, but I want to spend more time talking through the strategy you're going to use when buying rental properties using other people's money. We are going to deploy a strategy that's called the BRRRR method. Yes, BRRRR like I'm cold, and it stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Now, I know that probably sounds crazy. Like, what in the world is this Jaren guy talking about? But let me break it down for you, okay? You're going to start with the first B, which is buy. We're going to go buy a distressed, undervalued home. You are then going to use either your private lender, hard money lender, HELOC, cash, or any combination of all of them to get the deal funded. Once you have closed on the property, you're then going to go and rehab it using the funds from your lender, and you're going to take this ugly property and make it pretty. Now, when you do that, I want you to think back to those 6 pillars that I talked about earlier. You're going to execute what's called forced appreciation. So because you took this ugly property and made it pretty, you have forced value upon the home and made it worth more instantly. Once you have completed the rehab, you then are going to get a tenant in place. Now, quick plug here, you don't always have to get a tenant in place before moving to the next step in the process, which is the refinance. Many lenders will actually allow you to go through with a refi without a tenant in place, but just note that will be lender dependent. So once you do have a tenant in place, or you don't because the lender doesn't care, you're going to go to a small local bank or a DSCR lender and get a new long-term loan put on the home so that you can pay back your private lender. So here's how it works. After you've rehabbed the property, you walk into the bank, you say, hey, I purchased property X a few months back. I fixed it up, and now I want to do a cash out refinance with you guys. Can you order the appraisal and get the ball rolling? Now, quick disclaimer, make sure you don't just walk into the bank without a relationship and try this. Spend some time getting to know the folks. It always helps. Anyways, what the bank is going to do next is they are going to order the appraisal. An appraiser is going to go to that property and decide what the home is now worth. So let's just say the appraiser goes to your house and says the home is now worth $100,000 for easy math. The bank is then going to say, hey, Jaren, your house is now worth $100K per the appraiser. We will lend you 80% of that new appraised value, which would be $80,000. The way they will do that is through a cash out refinance. So the bank will then write you a check for 80% of that new appraised value. Now, if you have debt out with the hard money lender, they are going to pay that loan off first and then give you any money that's left over. Oftentimes, if you use a private lender for funding, that mortgage isn't going to be recorded where the bank can see it. So you will deposit the full amount of the 80% of the cash out refinance into your bank account. Then you will manually go and pay off the private investor. All right, so back to our scenario. The new appraised value is $100,000. The bank is going to write you a check for $80,000. You're going to deposit that into your bank account. Then you're going to go and pay back your hard money or your private lender. They have all their money back plus any fees. You now have a property and you didn't have to put a dime of your own money in the deal. Now, the key to all of this is buying properties at a discount. Because if we buy at the right discount, the 80% cash out refinance should hopefully be enough to pay these lenders back without you having to come out of pocket at all. That's why it's important to know what your after repair value and rehab costs are going to be on the front end. And there may be sometimes where you do have to leave some of your own bucks in the deal. Or maybe your appraisal on the back end didn't come back at a high enough amount to be able to pay back the full loan amount that the private or hard money lender gave you. Or maybe you wanted to keep the mortgage amount smaller so you will have more cash flow. So you didn't refinance the full 80% the bank would have given you. Guess what? All that's okay. Isn't that better than having to put 20% down and having to rehab every property using your own money? Using other people's money allows you to preserve capital, which ultimately allows you to scale your portfolio, all while increasing your rate of returns. Listen, friend, this is what all of the large institutional investors do. They just do it with very large multifamily properties and very large sums of money. But it's the playbook for the top real estate investors across the globe. It's a winning strategy and is one that has literally taken my family and I from broke in 2018 to financial freedom today. I'm able to enjoy a lot more time with my wife and 4 kids because of it. It works. It's been tried and tested. I personally have repeated it over and over again. I've taught hundreds of other people how to do it, and I've seen their success. I've got friends doing it all over the country, and it's changing their lives. Every big name investor you know is doing it. And look, I know right now you may think, man, this just seems too hard. Listen, I know that new ventures can seem daunting and even seem out of reach, but I need you to hear me out. Money and capital is plentiful. There is so much of it available, and there are so many people looking to partner with investors so that they can deploy their capital and get good returns. They want somebody else to deal with all of the real estate stuff. Let that person be you. Go network, go meet people, learn how to find good deals, present those deals to lenders, partner with those lenders, crush the project, repeat. The key to immense wealth is leveraging other people's money. Go unlock it for yourself. I believe in you. I have faith in you, and I'm excited to hear about your journey. All right, now it's time for questions with Jaren. We've only got time for one question today, so let's get going. Jaren, are you ever scared that you won't be able to get a property rented out after you purchase it? All right, listen, so any investment is going to come with risk. You have to acknowledge that. But the way that I combat the fear of risk is by looking at data. So in Q2 of 2024, the national average vacancy rate for rentals in the United States, for example, was only 6%. Say that again, was only 6.6%. That means from a macro statistics standpoint, you have close to a 93% chance of getting a tenant placed in your rental property. I don't have this data in front of me, but I'd venture to say that vacancy rate is lower for real estate in good areas. So for me, I feel confident that if I buy good real estate in good areas, I'm going to be okay when it comes to getting my properties rented. Thank you for tuning in to the Rich Dad Real Estate Show today, where I broke down how to buy real estate using other people's money. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And as always, you can find myself, your host, Jaren Sustar, on all social media platforms with the handle @Jaren Sustar. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you next week. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Rich Dad Real Estate Show. Again, I'm your new host, Jaren Sustar. I look forward to hanging out with you guys every week. Make sure you keep tuning in so we can deep dive into all things real estate investing. You can take this knowledge, go apply it into the world so you can ultimately reach financial freedom. I'll see you next week.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.